Alright, welcome to this video on how to use ReadyPlayer Me avatars with Photon multiplayer. This has been one of the things asked many times, and it is quite tricky to get right because fundamentally how most of the multiplayer systems work with Unity, because you need to prepare certain things inside the engine, and bringing a runtime avatar is a challenging part of it. So past week I was working on a package to make this possible with ReadyPlayer Me, and this is now available on GitHub. I just wanted to make this video and show it to you, and so hopefully this is going to help you make ReadyPlayer Me applications using Photon multiplayer ones much easy. So I'm not going to keep this long, and let's get to the example. I'm going to show you everything step by step, and at the end we should have a very basic demo that works with Photon, and you can build on top of that. If you know what Photon is, and if you have already an account, so this should be easier for you. Otherwise, as a first step, I will ask you to go to photonengine.com and create yourself an account. After that, we will use the application code that is created there. So I can visit my dashboard and already see what it looks like. You will see your emails and some other details on this side, and it's going to ask you to create an application. What I'm going to use in this case is Photon Unity Multiplayer 2 free version, which we are going to get from Unity Asset Store. I'll create a new app here. I'm going to select multiplayer game type. It is going to be a PUN application. In this drop down, you will pick PUN and then application name. I already tested with ReadyPlayer Me test. Let's use this, and the other two parts are optional. We do not need to use those. Once I created my application, here I will get an application ID that we are going to use. But before getting to the application ID, let's go back to Unity. I created a Unity 2020 application, so it is blank, there is nothing in it. What we need to get this time is Photon 2 free and Unity ReadyPlayer Me Unity SDK. I'm going to go to GitHub, and under the ReadyPlayer Me GitHub organization, I can go to core and copy the package URL, git URL, and go to package manager and add the package. These are the instructions I showed multiple times in the other tutorials, but still it's good to cover. Let's go through that. It's gonna take a few seconds, and then after that we should get multiple packages from ReadyPlayer Me already installed your application. And we are done. So the latest versions are 1.3 for core and avatar loader, and WebView is kind of irrelevant at this point unless you are going to use mobile, but this is what we have. And the second thing I will need is actually Photon itself. So either you can go to Unity Asset Store. When we visit Unity Asset Store, you can search for Photon Engine, and you will get the multiple packages from the Photon Engine company. And what we will use it, Photon 2 multiplayer network, Unity networking free. So I will drop the URL in there as well. This is a free version. You can test with 20 concurrent players, and well, you can update if you like so afterwards. So I already have this. You can say opening Unity. It's gonna open the Unity editor. From the Windows, again we will go to package manager, and in here I will have my assets. If you ever used it, add it into your assets. You should also see this part, and it's gonna automatically pick the PUN2 free version, and I'll just say import. So it is going to ask me to import all these things, samples and all. I will get them into my project, and we have Photon completed. Now I see this window from Photon which asks me to set an application ID or email. Once you created a Photon account and created the application, this is the application ID that we are going to use. I will just copy this and go back to Unity and paste it here. And once we do it, we are pretty much set. So now Photon applications I develop and build with this Unity project are going to be connected through this ID. And of course, there are certain details here you might want to test with your friends who might be in different countries. So there are some parts to set as well, if you like. So this is not a mandatory part. For fixed region, I will say EU, and dev region, I will say EU. Normally it picks the closest location, and let's say it might pick Europe for me, but you are in the US. Then if I send my application to my friend and ask him to test, he's not gonna see anything, because it actually creates local rooms and assigns a room in that region. What I want to do is bring those people into wherever I am. This is just for test purposes. Of course, you can learn more about how Photon works and how the settings work and change your settings according to it. I will just keep this as is. So we are pretty much set. We have Unity, we have ReadyPlayerMe SDK, we have Photon, and what we need now is ReadyPlayerMe Photon support package. Again, in ReadyPlayerMe GitHub organization, you can search for Photon and you will see a GitHub repository called ReadyPlayerMe Unity SDK Photon support. This is a small package which includes a script, a prefab, and a sample project. So you can see actually everything that I'm telling you right now is inside this README file already. I'm going to click on the code button, I'm going to copy, and the same way I'm going to import this into my project. Clicking on the plus button, get it through git URL, add it, and in a matter of seconds I should have my Photon support project. All right, the project, the important thing to do is to check out the sample. So project comes with a sample that shows how things work. We want to take a look at that first and then dive deep into it and understand how and why it works, and why it was challenging to make ReadyPlayerMe work with Photon. So I'm going to import the project itself, and I have my sample imported. I'm going to open it up. So it's going to be under samples, ReadyPlayerMe Photon support 1.0 avatar control. I'm going to open up my scene. You should see a plane with 4 cubes on it, just for understanding the location that our avatars are walking around. The UI is going to look like this. Just pasting your avatar URL and loading an avatar. And for this, of course, we will need to go to readyplayer.me and create ourselves an avatar. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm going to ReadyPlayerMe. I'm gonna visit Hub and quickly copy the URL of one of the avatars I last time made. Let's copy this guy, and I'm gonna go back to Unity, run this. I will just run the scene and paste my avatar URL. What I expect to see is kind of a ghost avatar, and then a couple of seconds later my avatar will load and I can walk around with it in a very basic manner. The point is, you know, not how it looks, how it walks, but if that works. Of course, what we see is just one avatar. So what I'm gonna try to do is, I'm going to build this in here. I'll just create a folder called builds and select folder and wait for it to build it for Windows. Again, this should work on any platform, wherever Photon works and ReadyPlayerMe works. And so the idea is to be able to try multiple avatars working together in here. And it's coming up. All right, so here is the application. I'm gonna just load this avatar right here. It's loaded. I want to go to ReadyPlayerMe again. Close the tab. I want to go to ReadyPlayerMe again and load another avatar. I'm gonna go to my avatars tab and pick one of the avatars I had. I'll copy her and bring that in here. So this was the first avatar I picked. I'll walk here and I will run it in the editor. And I will paste the URL, load the avatar, and what I see here is that my avatars are working. However, we have an error message and the avatar in the editor actually didn't load the character. So the reason I intentionally wanted to show this error to you, because you are definitely going to encounter that, and the idea is to solve it when it happens. The reason is that both clients are trying to load the avatar from the same URL. In one case, this female avatar with pink hair was not yet loaded, but the second client tried to access it. So what happens is like a race condition. The file that is not downloaded yet is trying to, like another client is trying to read it. This only happens locally when you share it with someone else on another device, or even WebGL to PC editor. You shouldn't have this kind of platform because they are going to read and write from different places. Right now these two are reading from the same place in application data path. This problem is happening. How to solve this problem is you just restart the application, because this avatar is already downloaded once now. So if I paste my avatar URL again and load it, it should just work. So again, this happens because we try to read a file has not finished being written yet. Now that avatar is in the cache, so we can actually have it load again. This is a problem with the cached avatars. If you want to, do not want to load the same avatars multiple times, but load them from the cache, this is going to be the thing. And as you can see, I can walk around and this is just going to work. So animations are working, the position is working. This is just two basic things that I wanted to track in this sample, and this is how it is. Very simply, very basically, this is how it works. But how it works and why it works, this is where I want to deep dive into. Tutorial is not over yet, and I want to go into some details. In the avatar control folder, we can go into scripts and find two scripts here. One is called basic movement. This is just for making the avatars move around and play the walking animation with a speed parameter. And the second one is Photon setup. If you haven't used Photon before, this part might be a bit confusing, but if you know what Photon is and how it works, but wonder how ReadyPlayer avatars could work with it, this is the right place for you. I'll try to explain as clearly as possible so people who do not know how Photon works too can get an idea of it, and we can make this work. So I'm gonna move right here and try to explain the code to you. First of all, I will just go down at the bottom on joined function, and I want to tell you what actually happens here. Photon itself has a different instantiate method, and what it does is Photon expects you to prepare a prefab for the characters you are going to instantiate and loads them from the resources folder. That is why I also have a resources folder here, and inside I have a prefab called ReadyPlayer Photon test character. We can open this up. It is a T-pose ReadyPlayer avatar, nothing, no textures, just basic mesh and the bone structure. It has a hidden camera in it. This is the third-person camera behind our back that gets enabled. It has a transparent skinned mesh renderer object and an avatar skinned mesh renderer object. This is like that because how GLTFS loads the objects. We will need two different meshes with different materials to handle transparent objects and handling opaque objects. So this is one of the details I want to tell you about. So what I have is here, I already have a ReadyPlayer avatar, like a ghost avatar, default avatar set here. Photon is only able to load prefabs that are already generated. Since I load my avatar's runtime with their URL, I do not really know what is going to come. This was causing the main problem of ReadyPlayer not working with Photon at the first place. So you either had to have a container object, then place the ReadyPlayer avatar game object in it. In this case, there is already an imitation of a ReadyPlayer avatar, and we actually spawn that. And right after that, what happens is we instantiate the object in the 0 location. It has a component called NetworkPlayer, and we call the avatar load avatar method of it with the URL that is given. And going back to the whole thing, this is a very basic setup. There are no waiting rooms or anything. we just automatically sync the scenes. This is a mono behavior PUN callback inherited class, by the way. And on connect to the master function, just sets the room, gives our avatar a nickname with the ID of the URL itself, It sets the maximum players, it creates the room, and it calls join or create room function of Photon network. And that's just it. So I have the input field, I created the room, and I tell it to connect to master. And once the connection happens, onJoined room is called. So we are in the room with Photon, our avatar is instantiated, and then avatar loading starts right after that. Since I have the context of the input field right here, I can actually get that. So this is the time we can actually go into NetworkPlayer and check what is happening here. So NetworkPlayer is the component that makes this connection and makes the avatar work. It is a component already placed on the test character itself. So it looks like a Ready Player Me avatar itself. It has transform component, animator, set to animation avatar and animation controller of this example. And on top of that, it has a Photon view, it has a network player, it gets a config because there's a certain config we will need to create this avatar with, which I'm going to talk about as well. And then it has Photon animation view and transform view, so we can actually track this. Transform is going to help us move the avatar around, and animation is going to help us play the animations. And there is only walking layer, and it is continuous. So this is pretty much it. This I can hide, and of course the basic movement to walk it around. This is what we have here. And what we did was we instantiated the prefab and get the network player of it and call the load avatar. So we can take a look at the load avatar function. Load avatar actually uses that URL to call a Photon view RPC. In this context, what an RPC is a remote procedural call. So I am calling a method not only on my instance, but in all the other connected players instances. So this way, I'm not just loading the avatar, my avatar for myself, but I'm loading my avatar for all the other players. So you can think it that way. That's the reason I do not call a avatar loader of Ready Player Me directly in my application, but instead of that, I say, hey, call the avatar loading method in all the instances of this game. So what happens in this case is that first avatar gets loaded, and then I reposition the eyes of the avatar because the faces of all the Ready Player Me avatars has different shape. They have personal traits, and the eye positions might be a little off. So what I do is I correct that here. After that, I do transfer, I do mesh and material transfer. So in this case, I go through all the skin mesh renderers and replace them and replace the materials. So what actually happens is in this prefab again, replace the mesh, replace the materials, and then my avatar is projected onto this prefab, and then the original object itself gets destroyed. So we are pretty much set. This is pretty much what happens. So this is the reason with the sample, you can actually load Ready Player Me avatars and work with them in Photon directly. What you need to do is you will need to set your own prefab the same way. You might have character controller on it, you might have some other things, and you want to use this system. This is how it is going to work. And of course, this is a test character. So what you need to do is there is a menu item here for actually transferring the Photon prefab into your project. If you do not want to base your application on the sample, let's say you already have a game project with Photon, you have characters, and you want to see how you can use Ready Player Me. In that case, you would need to create a instance of a prefab that is Ready Player Me avatar. Then you can actually from this Ready Player Me menu transfer this prefab. It is going to land into your resources folder under Ready Player Me, and it is pretty much the same thing. However, it doesn't have this hidden camera that I added, and It doesn't have basic movement that I added because those were the things I had to add myself for my own example. Of course, you will need to set an animation controller, and you will need to set in the network player, you will need to set an avatar config. One of the things so far missing from this project is working with multiple mesh systems. It only supports the transparent mesh and the opaque mesh of the avatars that are atlased. If you know the concepts of Ready Player Me, you can actually create avatar configurations, which helps you optimize and change your avatar systems. Let's call this Photon config Photon. So there are many ways to configure your avatar, and what we do in this case is like if you have texture atlas set to none, you will download a multi-mesh avatar. So it is going to have eyes and teeth and arms and legs and shoes, everything put into separate mesh. We do not want that. We want it to be atlased, single material, single mesh if possible, if it doesn't have any transparent material on it. So you can pick one of these sizes. If you want to go high quality, you can pick 124 and then set this on your character's network player. So I'm gonna set it here, avatar config Photon. So if I use this character, then I should have it that way. So what I can do is actually in the sample script, I'm gonna go to Photon setup again. I'm gonna change the name of my prefab because it can find it from resources folder directly. You do not need to say the location, but just the name. And what was it called? It is called Ready Player Me character. Again, you can name it the way you want, and you can have whatever you like in it. So I'm just going to remove this, set Ready Player Me character, and all right. So I have this. It should again track animation, position. I can also add this basic movement on it because yeah, I will need that. And also I'm gonna set the animation controller that I created for this sample on this. So what I expect right now is to sample scene to load my character instead of the one comes from there. And also let's do something. For example, your character might have weapons or other items on it, and you would not need to set like this system differently. I want to find my hand. Let's go left hand. All right. So, and what I want to do is I want to put a stick in it, so let's say our avatar will walk around the stick in his hand and beat the enemies. So here's a cube. Let's make this 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. On the Z axis, I can actually leave it 1. This is local or global, is it? Because yeah, it has the hands rotation, so it's gonna be a little different. What I wanna do is I'm gonna get to this pins, so it happens to be X here. I'm gonna make this actually 0.2 and 0.2, 0.02. All right, so the stick is thinner. Let's move this stick right into, of course, probably putting it into, one of the finger bones make more sense, to be honest, but again, you can edit it the way you like. So I put it right here. So again, this can be a weapon, this can be another object, this can be a hat, this can be a pet, whatever you like around your avatar, around your character. So this is what I have. I have a different character setup right now. I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna run this, and I'm gonna paste URL. Of course, it's gone. I'm gonna copy her and come back to Unity. I'm gonna paste this, load it. Of course, it didn't have a camera in it. So here's my avatar loaded with the stick in his hand, the default avatar. And when it switches to this character, so it does work. Of course, basic movement, let's enable it. And I'm walking around with a stick in my hand. Yep, this is it. So the character setup at this point, again, you can edit the prefab to do whatever you like. Character controllers, objects, anything else, you handle it in here in the prefab. And then when you load your Ready Player Me avatar, the bone structure, bone positions, the materials and the meshes are going to change, and everything should be fine. Again, be wary of the setting the config. This might be something you might miss. Of course, in the settings file, settings window of Ready Player Me, you have a default that you set, and on top of that, it might use this if it's the right one, so you do not need to deal with that. But it's advised that you create your own for the multiplayer version and use it in here. Then it is going to load the avatar with that. This is pretty much it. So this was the Photon integration with Ready Player Me. Quite simple. Of course, there's a lot to know about Photon. I'm not a expert on Photon myself, so this was the simplest way I can get it work. And in the project itself, there's a whole explanation and images and anything you may like, and couple of notes about the known issues. Like I mentioned, you need to set the avatar config, and if you try to test it locally, it's gonna try to access a not yet finished downloading avatar, and it's gonna fail. But this next time, the second try, it's gonna work. That's the reason testing it remotely would be much better of an idea, or testing with the avatars that are already downloaded before. All right, so this would be it. Enjoy using Photon. I'm gonna get rid of this app ID so nobody else uses it, but that's pretty much that. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you can find some use for this and make Photon applications with Ready Player Me. The same logic should apply for Mirror and some other providers, much probably. We also have a netcode example cooking, so I'm also going to share that with you. And looking forward to the applications you are making with Ready Player Me. Have a nice week.